I'm Melanie Johnson, along with my co-host Jen Foster. We are both 13-time best-selling authors. We've published over 2,500 books and made all of our authors #1 bestsellers. We own Elite Online Publishing. If you want to become a best-selling author, look us up at eliteonlinepublishing.com. Now, welcome to the podcast that shares secrets from top industry experts that show you how to get lasting success and results. This is the Elite Expert Insider Podcast. Hey everyone, it's Melanie Johnson back with another awesome podcast. I'm here flying solo today. Jen is on vacation and she's in the Bahamas, lucky her. But today we have a fabulous show. And before we get started, I want to make sure you subscribe to our podcast and share it with your friends because we're always here to inspire you and motivate you and educate you. And if you're looking to write a book, make sure that you reach out to us at Elite Online Publishing because we guarantee that we make all of our authors #1 bestsellers and we teach you how to use your book for a marketing and advertising tool because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. All right, so it's been a stressful year. What can I say? All of us have had a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of nausea, a little bit of teetering on the edge, feeling like I need to break out. So we have an expert here today to talk about mindfulness, how to get rid of anxiety, how to be in the Zen zone, I'm going to call it. So let's get started. We have J.A. Plosker with us today. J.A., thanks so much for coming.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, tell us a little bit about how did you get started in the mindful space and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, it goes back. I mean, that story goes back over 25 years. I don't really ever remember a time in my life that I wasn't really struggling with anxiety and stress. I mean, everybody does, but I just don't remember a time that it wasn't a major part of my life or my day. And when I was 21, I just happened upon, I was at a gathering and I just had a meeting with somebody there and they gave me my very first technique, because I went and said to this person was a teacher of ancient wisdom. I said, I'm struggling with all this. And they gave me a very first breath technique. And I didn't really know it as mindful meditation at the time. It was just something I could practice. And, over the years, you ebb and flow with practice. And then years later, probably 4 or 5 years after that encounter, I had graduated from a professional program and I was really, really struggling. It had come to a really bad point. And that person that I had met years ago had become, a teacher of mine. I'd been going to some classes and teachings and I went and met with them. And I said, look, I'm still struggling. I'm really struggling. And they said, look, tell me what the issue is and let's see if we can work it through. And I couldn't think of anything to say. This is a spiritual teacher. My mind kind of went blank. And I said, is it my work? Should I continue being a lawyer? That was the professional program. And the teacher said to me, look, what you do for a living doesn't define you. It's only work. And he said, I'm going to have the universe bring you that message. It's only work. So fine. I went back home, back to that depression, right? Back to that stress, back to that crushing anxiety. And a few days later, out of nowhere, my dad calls me. And he says, the strangest thing just happened. He said, a man's voice just spoke to me and said, call your son and tell him it's only work. He said, does that mean anything to you? I said, yes. And the reason that's important is because at that moment, for the first time in years, I was completely present. And I realized that this dropped into my life in one moment. And I was giving my life over to regret about career choices, anxiety about what was next. I was never present. I was never here. And that moment just smacked me in the face. And I started to dive in again, back into that ancient practice I had learned, into the ancient wisdom I had learned in my comparative religion courses and through teaching it. And that was the moment that I really started to pursue it seriously because I couldn't ignore that moment. And I had to do something about it. And it all started with that breathing technique. Very powerful, mindful technique.
So can you share the breathing technique with us? Is it able to do like through audio and video?
Sure. So when I had first expressed my concern to this teacher, when we're really stressed or anxious, we don't think we can do anything, right? Our mind is racing, right? Is the Buddha's that monkey mind jumping around. And so this teacher calmed me down and said, "Can you sit?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Can you stare at a wall?" "Can you stare at the floor?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Can you breathe?" I said, "Yes." He said, "All right, so here's what I want you to do." He said, "Sit calmly and put your focus on something." He said, "It can be the carpet, it can be the wall, it could be your breath." He said, "Just breathe naturally if that's where you want to focus." He said, "Anytime your mind strays from breath, gently bring it back to breathing." Over and over. Now, this is an ancient technique. Now, I didn't know that at the time. I just went and started doing this. So basically, it's sit and pick a point of focus and concentrate. Anytime your mind strays from that point of focus, gently bring it back. And mindfulness is the awareness of the straying mind and the gentleness of bringing it back without judgment. So you have a point of focus, which is the meditative piece, but then the mindfulness grows from that. And over time, you expand your awareness, and you actually become the observer of your life. And it dials down the stress and it dials down the anxiety. You don't have to do it with that technique. That's the first one I did. I'm still doing it over 2 decades later, and it really has changed my life.
And, I know some people with anxiety, they have this voice in their head that is telling them something, whether it's I'm not enough, or it's a worry, or it's even I've dealt with people who've had like a voice of religious anxiety where they're saying, "Oh my gosh, what if I don't believe in God? What if I don't believe in God?" And
Right.
or something like that. And how do you get that voice? I have always equated it's like a bully in your head.
Yes.
And then,
Yes.
and one technique that I learned is just say, "Yeah, you're right. Fine. I do that." It's like calling someone fat. "Yeah, so I'm fat. Big deal." So now, but then the Billy's like, "Oh, well, now I can't say that." But then your mind raises the bar and it picks something else or goes further. How do you quiet that? Is it the same technique or are there other things that you can share?
Here's something that I learned over years of working with clients when I was a social work counselor. This came up all the time, whether it was in group or individual sessions. These minds that scream at us and persecute us all the time. That's very normal. What I've found works for me, one of the things I've done that works for me is I name the thought. So let's say I'm sitting and doing that meditation technique, right? I've picked a point of focus, it's my breath.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, my mind starts to go into, "I'm not doing this right," or "This isn't going to work." I quietly, without judgment, right? Mindfulness is this being in the moment on purpose
Mm-hmm.
without judgment. When my mind starts that used to be autopilot for me, right?
Yes.
Constant autopilot. What I do is I name the talk, and that robs it of its power. So if my mind is saying that to me, I just quietly think or say to myself, "Anxiety, it's not real." And I gently reset my focus. If I'm in a conversation and I'm trying to practice this radical awareness of mindfulness around a conversation, right? Trying to observe it instead of being attacked by it. This would be a difficult conversation. If I notice I'm feeling tense or stressful at what's coming at me from the other person,
Mm-hmm.
I smile and I try to get a gentle affect inside. And I just think to myself, "Love." Like I name the state I want to be, or I name the state that's trying to attack me. And what I find is it either robs negative emotions or negative thinking of its power, or it enhances positivity. It's a very interesting phenomenon. And over years of practice, I found it to be very, very effective. It's very powerful.
I love
So you
that. And it
name
almost
it.
seems like it would work with I've even had like all of a sudden I've had a pit in my stomach, like something feels like something bad is going to happen soon, like
Yes.
a weird, overwhelming. And I'm like, why am I feeling this way? I just feel like I have this like something's wrong, something's not right. And like you say, just name it and either tell it to go away or name the feeling that you want to have to bring it on.
Or my teacher used to call it background anxiety, right? And
Hmm.
I used to have that for years. Like I said to you at the start, I don't remember a time where I wasn't with that. That wasn't with me, this white noise. And so It used to be, like we said, autopilot. Now what I do is I notice it and I accept it by naming it. I just think, oh, anxiety. Oh, background discomfort. Is it magic? No. Mindfulness isn't magic, but it's also not a mystery. I mean, it does have profound biological effects. I mean, it can change the structures of our brains. So
Yeah.
the important thing to do is to get in the flow of mindfulness by setting your intention to be present,
Hmm.
accepting the moment without judgment as best you can, and robbing that negativity of its power by not letting it get on autopilot. That's where anxiety really had its hold on me, is it would happen without me even noticing it. Now I notice it and I try not to judge myself. Feelings aren't failings, right? So it's
Right.
natural to feel stress. It's natural to feel anxiety, but we don't want to let it drive the car.
That don't let it drive the car. All right. So let's say we get through the feeling. How do we tap into, you talk about having energy and having more energy. What are some of your things to elevate energy, and make intentions into and channel that energy into your business or your life or your family?
What mindfulness helps me do is it helps me, it's not always so much about creating a positive energy. I think what it's more about is clearing that negative clutter.
Hmm.
There's always sunlight streaming into the room, right? If
Hmm.
we but if the curtains are closed and there's boxes piled everywhere, we won't see it. We don't necessarily need to create more sunlight. We just need to create space for it to shine. So what you can do is think about your practice as slowly pulling the curtains open on the window and letting more light in, slowly organizing the spaces inside your mind so that you can breathe in your space. When you're writing and you have a lot of clutter in your office,
Right.
that can kill your creativity. So by creating more space, more room around your computer or wherever, you can actually enhance that creative flow. So think about mindfulness as a way to organize your internal world, to become aware of where the clutter is and where the negativity is, and don't let it hide there. And then that breathing technique, I notice, if you want to talk about raising energy, I notice spending a few minutes breathing. So either what's called 4-8 breathing. So you breathe in for 4, out for 8, slow. In for 4 through your nose, blow it out through your lips, slow for 8. That can trigger, that can reverse the fight or flight response.
Mhm.
That can actually calm you down. And that to me, positive energy is calm energy. So think of your mindfulness practice as a way of trying to be present, clear the
Mhm.
clutter, and give yourself space to be more in the flow. That's how I like to think of it.
I love it. Clear, present, and mindful. And the thing is about the breathing, breathing can be so powerful. I don't think people realize how important to get that, and oxygen to your brain and to your body. And a lot of times when people are stressed, you're either having shallow breathing or you're holding your breath or not even breathing at all.
That's
Um,
right.
you've mentioned about intuition a little bit. How do we harness our intuition and use it to help us?
Well, one of the things I struggled with for years was, some people say, well, I got a bad feeling about this. My problem was that I always had this background anxiety, right? So I always had a bad feeling about things. And I think once if we practice mindfulness, if we practice these techniques, what we do is we clear out that space. For me, it's my gut, right? That
Mhm.
literally my gut. That's where I store everything. Some people get pains in their shoulder. Me, it's my gut. Through practicing these techniques, I found that I've developed more of a sense of trust and clarity in what I'm thinking because I'm building what I consider to be filters to experience. So I
Mhm.
realize that not every piece of sensory input requires my immediate attention.
Mhm.
And so I'm getting good at building filtration systems. So where intuition comes in is now if I get an intuitive hit, or I'm feeling a certain way about a person or a situation, or maybe somewhere I should go, I'm more tuned in because I'm more able to trust my body because I'm training it to be calmer. And when I'm training it to be calmer, if I get a small hit of anxiety or a small hit of discomfort, I'm more apt to listen to it because I know it's not my ordinary anymore. And that's been life changing as well, especially in decisions I've made around career, around publishing, around other things in my life. It's been very, very potent.
And the tuition kind of goes back to almost like putting it in the universe. When we started the interview, you said, I'm going to put out to the universe that you're not defined by your work,
Right.
or
But
work is not who you are. And then all of a sudden your dad called. Is there a power to that, for doing it for yourself and putting things out there and verbally saying things? And is there a certain way that people should do that?
Well, I find that through mindful practice, remember we talk about clarity. So the things I put out there now are coming not from a place of panic, like, oh, get me out of this, get me out of this. It's more of a relaxed, something that when I try to do, we practice these manifesting techniques, or we want to put good things out there. It's now coming from a place of clarity. So if you have a journal practice that you like to do, if you journal from a place of resolve to be in the moment, you can really get in touch with what is it that you really, really want. Because I think a lot of people say, I want to get out of this job, so I'm just going to, they panic and they're trying to create a new job,
Right.
Well, really what they're creating is a state of panic. So, and a lack. I wish I had a job that. So
Yeah.
if you clear yourself, and mindfulness is just one way to do it, but if you can reach greater states of clarity through mindful practice, then it's the things that you're manifesting or putting out there are not reactive, right? They're responsive. You're responding to your environment. You're looking at things through a much clearer window, and you're better able to select what you want. So you can say, I am able to handle my job. I will bring in a job that is fulfilling for me. And you do it from a place of calm instead of a place of panic. And what I've noticed in my own life, and I can only speak for my own life, is that situations that I would normally want to run from, I actually learn to accept and stay with, because I realized that I didn't really need to manifest something new. What I needed to do was try to become more calm and settled in what was here. And that's something mindfulness has taught me. Is that true all the time? Of course not. But some of the time it is. Some of the time it is.
Yeah, it's all these things are a practice. Like you said, you have to bring yourself back, because it's not a perfect world, and it's constantly practicing it and staying on top of it and learning it. And you're offering a mindful guide for people. Tell us what's in that, and that people, how they can get it.
Well, I created what I call the free mindfulness quick start guide, and you can find that at japlosker.com / links. And what it is, it's very simple. It's just a 2-page guide, and it walks you through some simple exercises you can do, some gentle reminders. It gives you some journaling prompts for gratitude and things like that. And it's just a way, it's not overwhelming. It's not 500 pages of text. It's just 2 simple pages to give you some ideas about ways that you can think about integrating mindfulness. And I love that you talked about practice, because on my Instagram channel or wherever I am, that's my big thing, is
Mhm.
talking about integrating the practice of mindfulness into the life you have. It's
Yeah.
not about going to retreats all the time. It's about washing a dish. It's about sitting and breathing for 10 minutes. It's about feeling your feet on the ground as you walk, what that feels like. So the guide can help you do that.
I love that, because, when you go to a retreat, it's wonderful. You drink from the fire hose, and then you come back and you're kind of overwhelmed with all of the information and everything.
Yeah.
And to simplify it, like you say, if you can just take that time to breathe every day, if you can be present
Yes.
when you're washing your dishes, if you can be
Yes.
present, those little tiny things, and then it doesn't seem like so much pressure. We just
Exactly.
finished doing a conference, and I feel like so much pressure to do and implement everything that I learned into my life,
Yep.
and just take that step back, pick 1 or 2 things, and just relax and have peace, and do the one thing and see how your body reacts to it. And we all don't have to go 100 miles an hour, because that creates its own anxiety.
Absolutely. There's pressure around this because people say, well, I can't meditate. I can't do. Of course, I understand this isn't for everyone, but it's a discipline. Look, the practice of mindfulness is thousands of years old. I didn't invent this.
Right.
My teacher who said, it's only where he didn't invent that practice. This is ancient. And the reason it's ancient is because it's a discipline. It's not here and gone. It stands the test of time because people have to practice it over time. And so I love that you say that. And the life you have, sometimes I say the distraction is the practice. Because people say, well, I sat down to do mindful meditation. My mind's just wandering. Yes, that's the practice. The practice of gently resetting your focus, gently washing the dish. You start daydreaming. Oh, reset your attention to the dish. The distraction is the practice. Distraction, return, year after year. That's what grows the garden. That's the water and the sunlight and the seed. It's all in one practice. And that's what's so beautiful about it.
Yeah, like you can't go to the gym one time or two times and expect to have all these muscles, right? They have to keep
Absolutely.
developing. You get stronger and better at it every time you do it. Well, I truly enjoyed this interview, J.A. Thank you so much for coming by. Remind us again where everybody can find you and reach you.
They can find me at japlosker.com/links. If they're interested in coaching, I offer a free 15-minute consultation. I do mindfulness coaching. I coach authors, entrepreneurs. I coach empaths and sensitives. If they're interested, the free mindfulness quick start guide is there. And you can also find me on Instagram at J.A. Plosker. My wife and I are going to be developing we're developing a podcast. We're going to be developing all kinds of mindfulness resources. So if you get that quick start guide and join the mailing list, you'll get all the updates. So I just love to connect with people.
Terrific. Thanks so much for coming. I learned a bunch today. I hope you did too, everyone. Reminder to subscribe to the podcast and share it and leave us a comment and leave us a review. We would love to hear from you. And if you're looking to take your information and your content and your story and make it into a book, contact us at Elite Online Publishing and we'll be happy to help you. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.